team.
Hey there, this is Malorian, this is the Orc Tactical Team, and this is a topic I've touched on before, but I really like coming back to it because it's something I feel that it's one of my strong points, and it's something that a lot of other veteran gamers even really mess up on sometimes, and this is the whole idea of knowing the numbers and understanding the stats. This is something where you kind of get two sides of it. First of all, you get people saying like, oh, come on, Malorian. If I have 10 attacks and I'm hitting on a 4+, that means I'll hit 5 of my attacks. This is so simple. Don't waste my time. I'm going to go and I'm going to cancel this video. Let's go on to the next thing. And then there's the next part where they start really explaining the statistics and how it all works with bell curves. And they're like, this is so boring. Let's go look at something with boobs, right? It's just like, but really, this is something that's core to the game. This is a game of dice. And if you don't understand the math and the probability behind these dice, or how you can just drop them on the floor, then all of a sudden you're really losing a part of your game and something that somebody else can then be taking advantage of you. Now, I'm going to be talking about 3 different layers here, and it's going to start very basic and then get a little bit more complicated and then a little bit more mental. Now, at the bottom there, we're just talking about your regular math. And really what this is that understanding that, hey, in this situation, my Savage Orc Biggins have 50 attacks. I'll be hitting on a 4+, so that'll be 25. I'll be wounding on a 3+, so that's going to be this many. They have an armor save, so this is how many wounds I should do. And then coming back, they should be doing this many attacks. It's going to be doing this many wounds. You'll have this combat res. I'll have this combat res. And I expect, under average dice, to get this result. And it is kind of funny, the people that don't understand that. The number of people that have thrown units into my Savage Orc Biggins, and I just ripped them apart, and they're like, wow, that was ridiculous. I can't believe how well you rolled. Well, actually, when you have 50 strength 5 attacks, it turns out you do a lot of wounds. So, but they just didn't really look at that math beforehand. Or the whole idea that, okay, you might have a lot of attacks, but I'm striking first, removing your guys, so you actually have to modify the math for your unit, right? My Savage Orc Biggins can be doing lots of attacks, but if I only have like 10 left and you're coming at me with Chaos Warriors or anything that's more than Initiative 2, my numbers really go down after you start killing that front rank of guys, and you have to work that math in. And it really comes down to a really core level there where if I'm going to be setting myself up against that unit, I should know, and I should have already worked out in my mind that given the math, I should beat that unit. Otherwise, why am I wasting my time? Why am I doing this? Unless there's like a deeper tactical reason, like you're trying to whittle them down or something like that, you really have to take that time. Otherwise, you're throwing away the game right there. But like I said, that is pretty simplistic, and as long as you're a person that can do regular math, that should be right there in front of you. And if nothing else, if you play enough games, you'll start to understand that putting zombies into Savage Orc Biggins is bad. I shouldn't do that, right? So whether you have that math in your mind or you've played enough games, that's like the core level. Now, the next level past that is understanding the probability. And I think the biggest part where a lot of gamers look at this in Warhammer Fantasy is in the charge. Because that's the simplest thing and the one where they'll look at the most. Because really I'm saying, okay, you're that far away. I have to roll 2 dice. The odds of me getting this number is this. And so is it really worth me taking this risk? And it's funny where people want to put that risk somewhere else, but definitely in charges, that's where they're looking at it. Like, well, I should be rolling on my dice an average of 7. I'm just needing a 6 to make this charge, so I might fail it. I'm not really sure. Maybe I'll just back up this turn. Or, maybe they're lining up the Bretonnian Knights up against something else. They're saying, okay, where I'm placing myself, you have to roll an 11 or a 12 to charge me, and then on my following turn, assuming that you don't move anywhere, I just need to get an 8 with 3 dice. Yeah, I like the odds where I have this set up. This is within my level of risk. And that's the whole idea where, we're rolling dice, and there is this probability in this average result. However, these are dice, and it's also, there's going to be a variance. If we were always to go with what the average result was, the game would probably be a lot more boring, because you just kind of like push your things around and you would have that certainty knowing like, okay, I will be doing this, I win this, they just go whatever. No, there's dice you have to roll, and sometimes crazy things happen. And with this too is you have to realize that if you are doing something that has a 66% success rate, 2/3 of the time this is going to work. That means 1/3 of the time it's not going to work. And then once you understand that probability, you get to understand how much effort and how much of a safety net you have to be putting around this. Now, let's say, for example, we're doing that whole thing with the Knights, right, with the Bretonnian bust. You might be saying to yourself, well, you probably won't roll that 11 or 12, but even if you do, you won't be doing many wounds to me. I have a lot of ranks. I'll be steadfast, I can hold, and then I can counter. So worst case scenario, I should be okay, right? Or maybe you're saying too, like, when I send in my Savage Orc Biggins, I usually know that they're going to get in there, they're going to rip up face, but sometimes bad things happen. The variance changes enough that I don't win this battle, and then I have to say, like, okay, in case I do fail, I should go and I should move over my bunker this way, make sure they're within the general and BSB bubble, so that if they fail, I'm going to be okay. And not to just the very tip, right? Because if you are going to lose combat, that probably means you're going to lose guys, so make sure that that bubble can actually get in like a couple of ranks deep to understand those losses. Or maybe you're saying that, okay, after I come in with this unit, I'm probably going to win, and then I'm going to reform this way, because this one is a lot less probable, so if it goes bad, this one can support later. And that's another one, too, that kind of links in with that bottom layer, where sometimes for me, it's like, oh yeah, I'm going to send in the Savage Orc Biggins, I'm going to win by like 12. And so really you need extreme variance for me to actually lose that. However, sometimes people are in combats where if you do it by the average number, they should only be winning by 1 or 2. And with that, you have to keep in mind 2 very important things. One, at 1 or 2, it doesn't take very much for it to be a tie, to be a loss, so you have to really keep that in mind, that this is a very big risk. It's actually kind of silly how players do this, where it's almost like if something has a probability more than 50%, they're like, oh yeah, that's going to happen, right? If you look at this, it should actually happen like 75% of the time, so it basically happens every time. And it's so stupid, but people do it, and so with that, you just have to make sure you actually are understanding the numbers. And as well, if you're going in, and it's not only a thing where I need to charge in, I need to win, and I need them to break. If you beat somebody by 2, and they're rolling a Leadership 7 re-rolled, there's not that good of a chance they're actually going to break. So you have to keep all those numbers in mind. Now, so that was kind of like the first level. The second level, so understanding the probability and the possibility of failure. The top level that I really see missing in a lot of high-level players is the whole idea of taking it personally. And man, one of the ones you can see a lot, of course, Anthony from the Sustainable Center. That's what he's famous for, is for his rage. He'll roll his dice. It's like, oh, this is ridiculous. Look at what this did. The dice just screwed me over. I can't believe this stupid dice. It's, you have to realize that these poor little inanimate objects are just little things of plastic or resin or wood or metal, and they're just covered with little dots of paint. They don't mean you any harm. They don't mean anything. They're just a little inanimate object that you yourself are rolling across a table and are causing an effect. And one of the biggest things that people don't understand with that is the statistics behind it. And I think that's the real reason why they get so angry at these dice. In my position, I have been playing for over 10 years. I'm in a job that uses statistics a whole bunch. And really, I understand the math, right? I understand that, first of all, there's outliers, right? If I roll 10 dice, there is a possibility that I'll roll 10 ones. It's not very probable, but it's there. Really, when you're looking at a graph, you have your regular data, and this is stuff where it's like, oh, this is boring, I want to see that. No, 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 listen, this is important. So you have your regular data spread of what you expect to see, and then you have these outliers. And when you see them, there's something you should like, oh, that's different, but it's something that's still possible, and it's nothing that you should be getting mad over, because these things usually happen. As well, you have to realize, again, that your graph doesn't look like a straight line. Remember, just because this is the average result, it doesn't mean that happens every time. There is a wave. There is your spread of data going all the way through, and when you average it all, that gets your average result. So you can't roll your dice and get a low result. It's like, oh, stupid dice, this is ridiculous. I gotta buy new dice. Or you guys see this all the time where they roll a couple of dice. They're like, oh man, I just rolled a 3 on 2 dice. Oh, these roll so low. I'm gonna get rid of them. But you have to realize that these averages come from running like, 1,000, million, whatever runs, that brings to the average. You can't take this small subset and say that this is what's going to define these dice. And it's almost a thing of yin and yang, right? This is where this really comes in, this philosophy where if they're low now, don't worry, they're going to be high later. Now, you can almost get into some trouble there with some like gambling fallacies there. We're like, oh, I just rolled low. That means my next roll will have to be high. That's not the case either, right? You could have a period of high and then a period of low, and then everything averages out. But just have to realize that this is the flow of data, and in the end, everything averages out. And why this is so important to understand these statistics is because once you understand the math and the whole yin-yang of it, then you can just brush it off your shoulders. I mean, I can't fully speak for Anthony or anything like that, but I know that I see a lot of people in local tournaments where they roll some dice and they will dwell on that, right? If they roll and all of a sudden they whiff their attacks or something really improbable happens, they are angry. They are angry at the dice. They are angry at the game. And what that's doing is taking their mind off the rest of the game. And so while their opponent is still analyzing and stopping every turn and saying, okay, this is what happened, now I'm going to be doing this, they are focusing on those stupid dice and not moving on to the next thing. For my part, actually, I have some opponents that are surprised because I'll roll dice and something is very improbable, either high or low, and I just keep on rolling and resolve the effect, right? This is just what happened, this is it, and you just kind of go from there. Like, oh, that was some pretty bad luck. It's like, oh yeah, it's dice. And you just kind of go on with it. You have to kind of understand that, okay, this is what your dice rolled, this is the situation right now, and you just keep on going. You can't get angry, and you can't dwell on it. So that's really that top level. You can't get on tilt on these things. You have to just keep on rolling with it and focusing on where you are now. So that's really the topic. Bottom level, make sure you understand the math and that there is such a thing called as math. Middle level, make sure that you understand the probability and that if, even though something is really probable to happen, there's a chance it's going to fail. And so you have to be ready for that and have a safety net to cover it. And finally, understanding the statistics so that in the end, if you do get outlier results, that you don't get on tilt and just realize it's dice, it's a game, and these things happen. So there you go. That was the Orc Tactical Team, and we'll see you later. Bye.